Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. One of the key questions that people have when they're thinking about getting an EV is how long is the battery in the car going to last before it degrades to the point where you have to plug the thing in every 5 miles as you're going on a trip. Battery degradation, or having to replace the battery pack completely, or it setting on fire while you're replacing it, seems to be something that comes up quite a lot. If you've had a bit of battery degradation, what can you do about it? Let's find out. I've had this Tesla Model Y long range for just over 2 years, and it's on 48,000 miles. That means that I've driven the thing quite a bit in the time that I've had it. You don't do those kind of miles without going up and down the country a lot, and I have. You don't do that without using lots of charging, which I have. So battery degradation is going to be a thing. I don't know how else to put this to you, but all batteries degrade over time, just as all engines degrade over time. Have you seen the tests where people get their old car and then test it on a dyno and see how many of the horsepowers that it left the factory with it still has? And it's always gone down. It's exactly the same with batteries. They're always going to take a little bit of the power away, but is that really a problem? Well, on my car, I've got a test logic box, and that means that the app is able to read the battery and see what the rate of degradation is. So as I understand it from looking at my app, the battery has degraded by 8% in the 50,000 miles that I've had it. Now, I know for a fact, that batteries degrade fastest when you first get them, and then the curve eases off. So I'm told, even by Tesla technicians, that I don't need to worry particularly about the fact that it's gone down a bit. But part of the reason why it's degraded is because of cell balancing. That is a battery. That is not the same as being one giant piece of chemical engineering. It is filled with literally thousands of little round battery cells. Exactly the kind of thing that you used to stick in your Walkman back in the day, only a little bit more high tech. The way that these work, and I'm not speaking as an electrician or somebody who knows that much about science, so bear with me, but the way that they work basically is they add power, they discharge power, they add power, they discharge power. And the computer, which is monitoring and managing the battery pack, occasionally needs to be able to understand where the top and the bottom of the charge in the batteries is. So part of the reason why the battery pack degrades is if it's losing the top and it's losing the bottom. So what can we do about that? One of the things that Tesla recommends that you do, if you've got a long range battery pack like this with NCM chemistry, so nickel, cobalt, manganese, I believe. If you've got that pack, it will give you daily charging limits. So if you're driving the car on a regular basis, it recommends that you don't charge it beyond 80% on a regular basis. Fine. And it also recommends that if you are going quite low down the battery pack, that you plug it in and you keep the thing charged. There's lots of stuff out there on the internet which says that battery packs like these need to be kept in the sweet spot most of the time. So between 30 or so and 60 or so percent. So 80% at the top end and maybe 20% at the bottom end. But you do need to go further than that if the computer that's managing the batteries is going to know where the tops and the bottom of the charge in the cells are. And this is where it's recommended that now and then you push a little bit further on. What we're not talking about is going to 0%, because there is a risk that you're going to get stuck. But as we can see from my Test Logic app, 0% still has over 3 kilowatt hours of buffer, which means that you're going to be okay. So what we're going to do is something which I've read on the internet, so therefore must be factual and correct, but has been validated and backed up by my local Tesla Centers technicians who said, Ian, here's what we suggest that you do. And that is this. I drove this car and I kept the battery charge relatively low, so that when it came in last night, the battery was on 3%. I've then let the car sleep overnight, and I do mean sleep, not having the app going and refreshing it and checking on its status. Let the car go into hibernation, turn Sentry off, turn third-party software off, turn everything off, let the car sleep. So it's settling with the charge at a really low state, above zero, but as low as you risk taking it. And then plug it in and charge it all the way to 100. And by doing that, we're letting the car experience the very bottom of the pack and the very top of the pack. So here's what happened earlier on today when I plugged it in. So I have literally just plugged the car in. As you can see, we got all the way down to 2%, which was the plan, get the charge as low as you are comfortable doing. And we are basically going to charge it all the way up to 100, which I don't do very often. And I have dialed the charge down, as you can see, 20 amps. And the reason for doing that is I want this car to charge basically all day and overnight. It's currently 8:30 in the morning. I'm driving the car at about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So what I want to do is to have the car charge up to full, leave it time to then balance the battery pack. So in essence, you get it so that the car is no longer taking power to charge, but it's still taking a few amps while it's balancing off all of the different groups of cells. Is my understanding of it. I'm probably not describing it very well, but we are trying to get it so that having gone all the way down to effectively nothing left in the battery, that's not true. Even at zero, there is something left in the battery, but you don't really want to go quite that low. But the idea is that we've gone as low as we can, and then we are going to go all the way up to 100 and keep going until it has got full charge into everything. And then with a bit of luck, once we have finished charging all of this, the cell imbalance is going to be reduced and we're going to have more range. So the battery is on 2%, and if I was to tap that onto miles, which I never do, it's showing 7 miles. So therefore 1% is 3.5 miles, 100% should be 350 miles. The reality is no way on this planet is it going to do that, and it won't be on 2%, it'll be on like 2.5. So a couple of interesting things happening here. I have actually increased the power back up to 32 amps because we were not actually adding any power into the battery. And when I look on my ts.la app, I can see that it is taking 4.4 kilowatts of power to heat the battery because the battery is currently only at 3 degrees. It's -1 out here. So at the moment, it's not adding any range at all. It's heating the battery pack so that we'll be able to start charging. So we've had a low state of charge and it's cold. Initially, it's got to warm the battery so that it's able to charge. Just Get a Tesla is sponsored by Millibricks, where you can get World War II themed Lego compatible tanks and planes and jeeps and cars and all kinds of other cool stuff. Building kits is fun, guys. Go to millibricks.co.uk, put the code GET in at the checkout and get 10% off. So following doing that earlier on, it did start charging once the battery had warmed up enough for it to be able to take a charge, but we're now on 40% with 12 hours and 20 minutes remaining. I believe it will actually take longer than that because once it gets towards 100%, it's then going to keep going and keep topping up. As I'm recording this segment, it is 10 to 3 in the afternoon and I'm planning on leaving tomorrow morning at around 8:30. So what we're going to do is to reduce the power even further. So as you can see, this is a 32, hello, focus again. Thank you very much. This is a wall box capable of giving 32 amps and I am only taking, come on, there we go, 18 of those. So what we're going to do is to turn that down even more. And the reason for doing that is I do not want to have this car sat on 100% for ages and ages and ages. That is not recommended. So we're going to dial it down even further. So when you go into the charging menu, it lets you alter the amount of charge that's possible at any given location on a charger. You can't do that if it's rapid charging, but if it's any slow charger, so 11 kilowatts and below, then you can adjust it. And all I'm doing here, so this is a 7 kilowatt 32 amp charger. I've dialed it down to 18. I'm going to dial it down again to 16. So I've basically chopped the thing in half. That will then readjust the length of time that it's going to take. As you can see, the time remaining is increasing and I'm going to keep an eye on it that way. So what we're trying to do here is to get it so that all of the cells in the pack are balanced. It's recommended, according to the guy at Tesla, that you do this here and there. He even said to me, look, if you need the range of 100%, charge it to 100%. He charges his car to 100% quite a lot because he does mobile servicing and quite often needs the range, and it isn't doing his battery any harm at all. I tend not to go to 100% because you see the grey scale up here. At the moment, it's flashing up because it's charging, but ordinarily you get to the middle and anything above that is in white and it's showing you that it's giving power, and anything below that is in green and it's showing you that it's regenerating. The issue is, if the battery is completely full, then there's not any room for it to be able to put regenerative power back in. Not only is that bad for efficiency, but it's also not great for braking because you're going to have to use your disc brakes more than you would be doing otherwise. Point to note here, use your brakes. You do need to give your brakes a good prod quite often to make sure that you're scrubbing anything off the discs and the pads, otherwise they are going to seize up. So this is now saying 13 hours 25 remaining. I am going to keep an eye on that, but basically I want to get it so that when I set off tomorrow, it's on 100%. And this is the point where it's probably worth me just touching on some of the content that's coming up on this channel over the course of the next month or so. As well as this video, I have got a 5-day road trip coming up, which is going to be 1,200 miles plus across that time. I'm going to do the trip down over 3 legs. So we're going to see how it works when you're breaking up a trip, staying in hotels, doing overnight charging and things like that. And then for the second part of this series, I'm going to be doing the long trip back from Somerset up to Aberdeenshire in a single day on a single trip. What is this car like on a super long distance road trip in a day? Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't done so, if you want to see that. I've also got some maintenance coming up. So as I mentioned, the car is coming up on 50,000 miles, which is the warranty limit on the car. Not on the battery or the motors, the drivetrain, but on the actual car itself. So I'm taking the car into the service centre where it's going to have basically a pre-warranty ending inspection. Have a good look around the thing. It's going to get the suspension looked at because I've got a grinding, squeaking noise coming from the front, which I believe is the upper control arm, which was likely to get replaced. Again, getting that done before we run out of warranty. I'm going to get the tyres rotated. I'm getting the air filter changed. It's basically having a bit of a fettle, and they're going to tell me anything else that needs doing while it's there. So if you want to see what that's like, again, make sure you're subscribed so that you can see that. Back in the car, and we have just gone through 50%. So I am curious as to how this is looking. So if I was to go onto the trip meter, so this is suggesting on 50% of the battery that my predicted range is 125 miles, and that is based on a 297 watt hours per mile average over the last 200 miles. I do not believe for a second that my predicted range is only 250 miles, but we shall see. The point is, if I was to go up to there, do you remember earlier it was suggesting that my range was 350 miles. On 51%, it's now 154. So it's effectively saying that my predicted range is now just over 300 miles. So 300 miles, 250 miles. We're going to find out. This is going to be quite interesting. So I'm going to leave the thing charging. I've already dialed it down again. So we're now on 13 amps rather than the what we were on before, 14, 15. I think I was on 16 at some point. So we are going to see how we get on as the thing goes. Good morning. It is the day after the night before, and the car is now on 100%. And it has been interesting watching the charging journey as it got towards the top. So as you noticed, I had dialed the voltage down so that the amps were reduced to extend the charging time. I didn't want it sat overnight on 100%. But what I did was I ended up waking up early this morning and then I dialed it back up again just so that we could see what happens as it gets towards the top of the battery. And the results were quite interesting. So you got towards 99% and it was telling me basically that there was still 30 minutes remaining. And then 25 or so minutes later, there was still 30 minutes remaining. And then you started to see the ampage drop. So from 32 amps, as I dialed it all the way back up to the top, it started dropping. So 26, I think, was the first one that I saw. And then towards the end, it was taking, what, 6 amps? Something like that, as it was just topping and topping and topping all of the batteries off to be able to get to the point where the entire pack was properly full. But let's have a look at what it's meant in terms of the battery and the capacity of the battery. I've just had a look and the results are interesting. So I've already fed in my destination for leg 1 of this trip, and I've reset the overall trip computer to my trip down to Somerset, which is the 5-day trip that we are doing. So the interesting thing here, if you recall, at one point I was on 2% or so and it was suggesting a rated range of 350 miles. Well, that's nonsense on stilts, and we knew it. It's now suggesting 304 with the car full. However, it's telling me on here that I can do 246 based on an average of 297.1. It's quite cold today, 2 degrees, but the weather is clear and it's dry. So what we're going to do is have a play with driving relatively efficiently on the next trip down, and then we'll see how well we get on. By the way, if you want to see the first of those 2 videos that I'm going to be shooting for my trip down to Somerset, then make sure you've subscribed, because those are going to be coming up. So using my TestLogic app, I can go into the car and read the battery. And this has been the interesting part, because it was TestLogic that first pointed out to me the fact that I had lost some of the battery capacity and therefore some of the range. It was showing me that we had 8.1% battery degradation. Well, according to the reading now, that has dropped to 7.4% degradation. Good. We have improved the health of the battery by doing this exercise. And what's more, the available power that you can get out of the battery has also increased. It's gone from 72.9 kilowatt hours to 73.4 kilowatt hours. So it has gone up. And that's got to be a good thing. This car is 2 and a bit years old. I mean, it was actually built almost 2.5 years ago, and it's done 48,000 miles. So if I'm able to improve the health of the battery, that is a good thing. All of the FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt, tells you that this battery pack is going to fail or set on fire, or fail and set on fire, burning my house down and all of those other things. But basically, that the battery pack won't have any range, and it will be useless, and it will be worthless, and it's going to cost me $1 million to then replace it. Well, I've just shown that I can improve the health of my battery by just charging it. And that is something that I think people need to understand. So what we're going to do is repeat this exercise a few more times. I have got more long trips coming up. So this is now the start of February as I'm recording this. I'm on this 5-day odyssey that I'm about to set off on. I've got another couple of days later on in the month where again I'm going to be doing some long distances. So what I'm going to do is repeat this exercise, run the battery all the way down to the minimum, and then run it all the way back up to 100%, and let the cells balance. Let's see if we can eke a little bit more power back into the pack. Let me know in the comments how you're getting on with your cars and your battery packs. I know there's quite a few people who follow my channel, and I really appreciate it, who are driving older Model S's, Model X's, even older Model 3s. How are you getting on with your battery? What experiences have you got, and what have you been doing to try and manage them? Let me know. It'll be great to see, and I'll see you back here very soon on Just Get a Tesla.